All right, everyone, we need to talk because it is so hard for people who disagree with one another on fundamental issues to come together and actually have dialogue. And we saw that with the CNN town hall over the gun control debate in the wake of the mass shooting down in Parkland, Florida at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. The town hall was insane. People were yelling at Marco Rubio and Dana Loesch for simply having a different point of view. Now, I know that these debates are heated. I know that, gun control is something that divides American society right down the middle. And it's a passionate topic for some people. And we're going to get into why we actually need to have dialogue on these such issues later in the episode, and also what the foundations of morality are. And the reason that I want to get into morality is because morality is the foundation of politics. We let our morals and our view of the universe, the view of the world, dictate our politics. Before I get into that, I want to discuss why I decided to create this podcast in the first place. And this podcast is going to be called the Egora. And the reason I called it the Egora is, well, first let me give you some background information. So the Agora with an A, it was an open area in ancient Greek city-states for people to come together and discuss ideas. They talked about politics, they talked about religion, they talked about art, they talked about philosophy, they conducted commerce. It was basically the one-stop shop for everything. The town square, if you will. And it was actually the inspiration for the later and more famous Roman Forum, okay? So why the Egora? Well, the Egora is the electronic agora. It's a digital space in the 21st century. It's a space for people like us to talk about issues, for citizens to talk about issues that are facing our society today. And I'm not just talking about political issues. I'm talking about moral issues, religious, philosophical, health, art, historical. I want to talk about questions that are being posed in 21st century. I'm in America, but this can go anywhere. So this podcast is going to be conducted in a monologue format like this. I'm going to bring people on the show in the form of interviews, and I also want to do Q&As. I want to talk to the audience. I want to hear from you guys, and I want to hear questions that you want to be posed to the public, and some questions that I have already that I want to talk about in later episodes are: what brings life meaning? What is important in life? Is it happiness? Is it responsibility? What is it? How do I get involved in the political process? I'm almost 24 years old, and I've thought about getting involved in the political process, not necessarily running for office, but just being active and having my voice heard. And this is actually a way for me to do that, because that's what politics is. It's the idea of it's getting together and discussing ideas and then taking action upon those ideas. Does religion have something to offer in the 21st century? This is actually a big debate. A lot of people think that religion has no place in society, and then you have other people that believe that religion actually does have a moral foundation in our society. So I want to discuss that issue further. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? What is masculinity? What is femininity? I want to discuss these issues later down the road, but I also want to hear from you. So now getting into today's issue. Why are we so divided? Well, first we need to know, what are we divided on? And I mentioned earlier that it's morality, but what constitutes morality? Okay, NYU social psychologist Jonathan Haidt, he wrote a book called A Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. And this is actually the book that changed my view on politics and morality. So that's actually why I wanted to start this podcast with this as the first episode. And he and his team discovered 5 foundations for morality, and I'm going to give you those foundations right now. So the first one is harm and care, basically protecting those that are surrounding you. So whether that's your family, whether that's your friends, whether that's your countrymen, it all really depends. And that's actually something that liberals and conservatives are divided on. Who fits in that group? Who should be protected? Okay. The next foundation is fairness and reciprocity. So basically, should we have equality in this country? Should we have, and what is equality? Is it equality of opportunity, as conservatives view, or is it equality of outcome, as liberals view? It all depends. So this is another thing where we're divided on. The third thing is in-group loyalty. So humans are tribal creatures. It's just something that's natural to us. From the very origin of man, we got together in, the basic tribal function is the family, okay? And this kind of goes into the harm and care. So it's about protecting the ones that you love and the ones that are around you. But it can also broaden out from that. So it can go to your city or your friend group or your nation. It can even actually, here's a good example for the modern day sports teams. You connect, you could have someone I'm in Florida right now. I'm a San Diego Padres fan. As bad as we are, hopefully we'll do better in the future. I have hope with the prospects. But regardless, I connect with people in San Diego because I'm a Padres fan. I may have never seen you before. I don't know your political beliefs. I don't know who your family is, but I connect with you on that issue. I connect with you on this being a fan of the San Diego Padres. And you see it with fan bases that are really passionate. Look at the Oakland Raider fan base or the Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, Boston Red Sox, Yankees. People hate each other. Red Sox and Yankee fans hate each other for no other reason other than you like one team and I like the other. They might agree on pretty much everything else, but because you're a Yankee fan and because I'm a Red Sox fan, I don't like you. So that's basically the in-group loyalty tribal aspect of morality. Now, the next one is authority and respect. So this is views on respecting elders, respecting parents, respecting church hierarchy. These things all go into the idea of authority and respect. And then the last function is purity and sanctity. Okay, so this is really interesting because purity and sanctity, so you have the idea of spirituality and religion on one aspect, the idea of keeping what is sacred, and then something that has been coming up, especially in the last decade or so, the idea of purity in food, the idea of purity in what we eat, what we wear, is everything fair trade, things like that. So that's another thing that where liberals and conservatives are divided upon. But if you notice the examples that I gave you, I said that we are divided on moral lines. But what liberals and conservatives, or what people view to be pure, to be fairness, or to be loyalty, it varies depending on which side you are on the moral structure. So his results, okay, I'm going to give you guys his results, and you can actually go and take this quiz yourself. So it's called yourmorals.org, and it's really interesting. The results that I'm about to give you are actually really fascinating. So liberals, people who tend to vote liberal and are left-leaning, they are high in harm care and high in the fairness trait, okay? So they really care about caring for other people, protecting people, and they care about fairness, okay? And this can be seen in the debate over DACA, so keeping these dreamers, these people who are brought here to the United States as children through no fault of their own into the country, so that basically they want to protect them, keep them here. They also care about fairness, so the idea of keeping, the equality aspect of it, making sure that everybody has a fair shake. Now, this can go to the extreme, and I'm going to talk about what goes wrong in a little bit, what happens when something goes wrong with one of these, when any of these traits are actually taken to the extreme, okay? Now, liberals are low in authority, in-group, and purity. Now, that makes sense because liberals tend to be high in openness. They're out of the big five personality traits. Now, that's something completely different. I'll talk about that in a later episode. But the big five personality traits, liberals tend to be higher in openness than conservatives. So they're open to change. They're open to new ideas. So something like authority, which is a traditional aspect, in-group preference, traditional aspect, and purity, those are going to be low on the spectrum for liberals. They're going to be low in the hierarchy for liberals. Now, conservatives, this is really interesting because you would think, oh wow, okay, well, if they're low for liberals, then they're most likely going to be high for conservatives, and then what's high for liberals is going to be low for conservatives. But that's actually not the case. So the conservatives, everything starts to group together. It's very close together. All five of the traits start to group together. Now, as expected, fairness is the lowest trait for conservatives. It's that traditional idea of pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and that if you need something, you can go to charity or churches, things like that. But the highest is still harm care for both conservatives and liberals. They care about protecting their own. So whether it's protecting your family or protecting these dreamers, it's still protecting, which actually goes along with the idea of in-group preferences. You want to protect people that are closest to you. Now, the study, that was actually the map for America, but this study is virtually mirrored in every country and region that they did, with some slight variations. Now, basically what they found was that in-group loyalty, authority, and purity are the big dividers between liberals and conservatives. So those are the three aspects that are really dividing basically our society. It's not the harm care, it's not the fairness aspect, it's the in-group / loyalty, authority, and purity markers. So it's so interesting because perfect example. I'll give you the gun control debate. Okay. So liberals will say about conservatives, all right, well, since you don't want to ban guns or you don't want to have gun control, then you don't care about children. You don't want to protect them, and you're okay with people dying. And then on the opposite end, conservatives will tell liberals, well, no. You want to trample on our freedoms. That you want to take care of you want to take away our guns. You want to trample on our freedoms, and those are the extremes. Okay, those are the extreme views. Now, it's not about harm and care, right? They both care. Conservatives care about kids just as much as liberals care about kids, and liberals care about rights just as much as conservatives care about rights. It's what those rights are that actually are being disagreed upon. Okay, because liberals, like I said, they aren't high in the purity trait, whereas the conservatives view, okay, look, it's the Second Amendment, it's something pure, it's something traditional that we need to keep, whereas liberals, it's like, no, that was written in history, they don't care about it anymore, it's something we need to move on, founders didn't know about semi-automatic weapons, yada yada, the arguments that you keep hearing. But that's just one example. So why am I talking about this? Why am I bringing this up? I'm basically, from here, you're probably thinking, well, wait, hold on, we're divided, we're never going to agree with one another. But that's not true. We need to have dialogue. These are the foundations of society. Basically, this is the debate between change versus stability. Conservatives usually view stability as the main focus, whereas liberals view change as the main focus. And if you have too much change, you'll have chaos. If you have too much stability, you get authoritarianism and despotism, okay? That's when you take these things to the extremes. So why is it important to have dialogue? Because you need to meet in the middle. It's so interesting because American politics is being driven by the fringes right now. You have the extreme left, which is driving the Democratic Party further and further to the left. And then you have alt-right groups that are trying to drive the Republican Party further and further to the right. It hasn't happened as much on the scale as the left has, but it's still happening. You're trying to have the fringe, and then you have people in the middle who are the moderates or the center lefts or center rights who are looking at each other and saying, wait, hold on, why are we letting the fringes drive society? Why are we letting the fringes drive our political and moral discussions? And I'll give you an example. So the change versus stability, it's this struggle that keeps the balance within our society. Think of the yin-yang example. The yin-yang, they don't hate each other. They're at odds with one another, but they keep the balance. And if you notice that the yin has a little bit of yang in it and the yang has a little bit of yin, we need to have dialogue with one another if we are going to live in a free society, if this American Republic is going to continue. So that is where I want to leave this first episode. Please subscribe and keep an eye out for further episodes. This is the Egora with Jordan A. Brown signing off. Thank you guys.